Welcome to episode 9 of the Beginner Guide series. Last episode we had quite a few story quests as homework, things like the New War and Angels of Zariman, but I forgot to mention that the Duviri Paradox, which actually should be completed between the New War and the Zariman. We will be covering the Duviri in today's episode, so once you get to that chapter, if you haven't done it yet, I highly recommend doing the Duviri Paradox quest. I'm Tipsy and today we'll be continuing our Beginner Guide series. Just like before, this episode is split into chapters, so feel free to jump around as needed, and in today's episode we'll be covering the following topics, so let's just get into it. With the New War completed, we unlock some new quests like the Veil Breaker and also gain access to the Drifter Camp, which can be used as your new main hub instead of the standard Space Arbiter. The Drifter Camp can now be found as a new node on Earth, and from now on you can freely switch your main base of operations between the Space Arbiter and the Drifter Camp. If you ever want to switch back to the Space Arbiter, all you need to do is just click the node in Earth's orbit, and the game will then ask you to change your base of operations, and you can switch back and forth anytime you need by selecting the respective nodes. You now also have access to something called the Narmor bounties, and these can be picked up in the bounty sections from Khonsu and Vitus or from Attico and Fortuna, and in these bounties all enemies are replaced with their Narmor counterparts, which we encountered in the New War quest. The Narmor bounties will reward you with Narmor Isoplast, which can be used to trade in at the Quills or Little Dog for standing. We will cover this more in detail in a later chapter, but you can also farm the Warframe Caliban in here along with a few mods and weapons. After the New War, you should also receive some rewards in your inbox, including the Sirocco Amp. This is a huge upgrade from your normal mode amp, and you should have equipped it already on your operator. You will also be rewarded with the Nataruk and the Railjack weapons, plus a 3-day credit and affinity booster. So if you have gear that needs leveling, now is the perfect time, and you can even stack the affinity booster with a relay affinity blessing to get an extra 50% affinity, speeding up your weapons and frame leveling significantly. The Nataruk in particular is an excellent early game weapon as it doesn't require much modding and can hit extremely hard at this stage of the game, and we will cover a solid beginner build for it in the next chapter. With the Nataruk being an extremely powerful early game weapon, let's get yourself a decent beginner build for it so you can take your bow into next missions and absolutely destroy enemies with it. We don't have all the mods yet to make the perfect beginner build for the Nataruk, but we can put something together that is solid and can hold its own until we get the Galvanized Mods. So I will show the current build I'm using along with what you should work towards as a beginner build for the Nataruk. Right now we have the core of the build just with the Galvanized mod swapped out for the regular counterparts. We are also missing a pretty important mod called the Hunter Munition. Getting these 3 mods, the Galvanized Chamber, the Galvanized Aptitude and the Hunter Munition, will greatly increase your overall DPS with the Nataruk. For now we are running Split Chamber and Vigilant Armaments for multi-shot. Later on, Split Chamber should be replaced with the Galvanized Chamber and Vigilant Armaments should be replaced with the Hunter Munitions. Next we have the Rifle Aptitude for status effect, which should eventually be replaced with Galvanized Aptitude. And the rest of the setup is already in a good place. We are using Rime Rounds and Malignant Force to add status chance and add viral damage. For heat damage we are currently using the Hellfire mod since we don't have the Thermite rounds yet, the 60/60 heat mod for rifles. And lastly we are running Point Strike and also Vital Sense to boost the crit chance and crit damage on the weapon. Overall, to take full advantage of the Nataruk and comfortably bring it into Steel Path, you will eventually need the Hunter Munitions and the Galvanized mods. But with this current setup you will be able to hold your ground just fine for now. We will be covering the Galvanized mods later in the episode, while Hunter Munition can be found from the Ghoul Purge event, and it has a 10% drop rate from Rotation A and also has a chance to drop from certain enemies that will spawn in these bounties. And one last thing to keep in mind about the Nataruk is that it actually has a charge up mechanic. You can hold down the arrow until it reaches the small sweet spot on the charge bar and then release it. Doing so will make it a perfect shot, which increases crit chance, crit damage and gives the arrow infinite punch through, allowing it to pass through enemies. Overall, this is a fantastic beginner weapon, and with the right mods it's a great starting point for Steel Path thanks to the high damage potential, until you get your hands on the Incarnon weapons, which we will also be covering a little bit in this episode. But as mentioned in chapter 1, we now have access to the Narmor bounties, which means we actually have a decent early game way to progress or standing with the Quills and Little Dog, who sells amp parts and can craft you a better amp than the Sirocco. The amp I personally use on my main account is called the 147 amp, which is a heavy attack that is basically a seeking arrow that can kill multiple enemies and does decent damage as well. Some other popular amps are the 177 and the 777 amp, as they are pretty powerful as well. To craft these amps you will need to be at least rank 4 with the Quills and rank rank 4 with Voxelaris, which is Little Duck. Following this chart here, we can see each part has a number next to them, so if we wanted to craft my main amp, we will need the Wrap-Like Prism from the Quills rank 1. Then we will need the Perfect Scaffold from the Quills at rank 4, and lastly the Certus Sprays, which can be gotten from Voxelaris Little Duck at rank 4. And to craft the amp, you will need to buy the blueprints, then craft them in the Foundry and take them to either Little Duck or Onco to put them together to fully craft the amp and make it equipable on your operator. If you're starting from scratch leveling both the Syndicates, the Quills and the Voxelaris to rank 4, we will need a total of 71 Narmor Isoblast to get there. But also getting the Solaris United, the main Fortuna Syndicate, to rank 5 to access the highest bounties where we can get the resources needed for rank 4 with the Voxelaris. And also have done a few Eidolons in the Plains of Eidolon to get the Quills rank up, so this will be a goal further down the line. But now we know how we can get there, so there's some things to work on for the future. And we will be covering Eidolons more in the next episode, but for now the Sirocco is more than enough, as it is better than the normal mode amp you had before by miles. And now for Duviri, which I forgot to mention in the last episode, that you should complete the Duviri Paradox quest as homework for this episode. And we will be covering it now, so if you haven't done it yet and want to avoid semi-spoilers, feel free to pause here and finish the quest, or just skip ahead past this chapter until you have completed it, since you will need it unlocked for this method to work. And once you have finished the quest, you will gain access to a new area called Duviri, and here is a separate instance in Warframe, almost like a semi-roguelike system where you can earn rewards that you can bring back into the main game. And when you first enter Duviri, things could be a little bit confusing. You will be presented with a selection of Warframes and weapons chosen randomly for that run, and these come with a preset builds, meaning that even if you haven't built or modded these weapons or frames yourself, you will still be equipped with mods on them. And you can see and adjust these by clicking on the configure for the weapon or frame if you already have that weapon or frame yourself. This also makes Duviri a great place to test out weapons or warframes you haven't acquired yet, maybe even discover something new that you want to grind for. And of course, if you already have the weapon or warframe, you can also swap to your own mod setup via the configure menu as mentioned before. Now let's go over the basics of how Duviri works, starting with the normal Duviri story mode, which is the base node, and then we will cover the circuit afterwards. When you first enter into a Duviri node, you will choose from a random selection of warframes and weapons, just like mentioned earlier. Then you will pick whatever you like, and the loadout reset every run that you run through Duviri, which means nothing here is permanent. The only permanent progression comes from the Incentrics, which you can upgrade at the Golden Bowl, and these work similarly to the Railjack Incentrics, persistent upgrades that will carry all over your runs. Nearby there should also be a small plant box that will give you a few Duviri resources each day, plus an area where you can customize your Kaiv, the Flying Horse. And also purchase drifter weapons with the Path of Clams. These weapons will be sent to your Foundry, where you can craft them to use in the main game as well. Once you and your squad is ready, you can then head into the portal to start the Duviri mission. Inside Duviri, you will mainly use your drifter in the overworld, while certain objective called the Undergrowth transports you into a smaller instance where you will control the warframe you have picked at the start. And your main goal is to follow the yellow objectives and complete them. After each main or side objective, you will receive a degree, a random bonus effect that stays active for the entire rest of that run. And degrees can be surprisingly powerful or funny to use, often creating some crazy interactions that will make your build much stronger and just overall make the Duviri experience much easier. And once you actually complete a few of these objectives, at the final stage of the run, you and your teammates will activate a stone, which will then give you a glaive weapon and spawn in the Ori Worm, the final boss of the Duviri run. To defeat it, you will have to mount your Kaiv and fly close to the Ori Worm to latch onto it, and then you will need to turn the gates on its body to the correct order to control it, while also avoiding the smaller worms and its attacks, which can knock you off your Kaiv, and if you can't resummon your Kaiv in time, you will risk falling to your death from the fall damage. Then once all the gates are turned, you and your teammates can then take control of the Ori Worm and destroy the 2 towers to open the portal to the final boss arena. Inside the arena, you will use your warframe to fight the Ori Worm across multiple phases. You will also need to destroy the rings on its body while avoiding its attack and minions. There's also one phase where the arena will come under attack, forcing you to ride your Kaiv to the outer edges and destroy the smaller Ori Worms before returning to damage the main boss. And once the Ori Worm is defeated, a reward chest will spawn and it will take you to the portal to extract. At the extraction, you will receive all the resources and mission rewards you have earned so far. And most importantly, the Path of Clams, which are essential for crafting your Incarnon weapons, some of the strongest weapons in the game. And also a quick little tip: if you just want to farm Duviri resources, you can actually enter in solo mode, then gather all the resources you need, and then complete a main or side objective to earn a degree. This will then allow you to actually extract early from the mission, as long as you have obtained gain a degree that will actually save your progress when you leave the mission. And that is how easy it is to then actually farm the Duviri resources, as you don't really have to actually complete the full Duviri experience. You can just go in, get your stuff, and then leave the mission after getting your degree. And back to Duviri instances. So first, Duviri works in something called spirals, which you can see by hovering the face in the menu up at the top right side. You can also see your next run's weapons and frame choices here before actually heading into the mission. Some special events are also tied to certain spirals. For example, if you want to farm the Kuva Warframe, you will have to be in the correct spiral for the event to show up. Now for the 3 instances, and we have just covered the normal Duviri experience node where side objectives will also appear. Now there's the lone story, which is a story focused one where only main objectives are active, making it more streamlined with no side objectives, as they work pretty much the same but in a more streamlined way to just go through and fight the Worm instead. Now for the interesting node where you can get a Warframe each week and some mods and other stuff as well in, and this is called the circuit. When you first try to start the circuit, you will get a choice between 3 different Warframes, and the Warframes you choose will then be what you're farming for in the circuit this week. And each week this rotates, giving you an option of 3 new Warframes to choose from, and here you can see the weeks and which Warframes will be available to choose from. And the ones highlighted here are the ones I would probably go for first if you don't already have them, as they are usually a bit harder or annoying to obtain, making the circuit a much easier method to actually obtain these Warframes. When you have chosen a Warframe, you will then see a path of 10 different levels you will have to go through to get the parts for the Warframe, their main augment mod, and some bonus rewards. And to progress this path, you will then need to do circuit runs. Basically each undergrowth level you complete will give you some experience to your path. And the more you complete in a row, the higher the experience will be, as seen here. You will also be given 50 circuit progress for your first completion once a day. So now you basically just want to keep running the circuit until you have completed each of the circuit parts to claim your rewards. This is pretty much straightforward and will give you an easy way to obtain these rewards. Also, once you unlock Steel Path, you can do the Steel Path version, which doesn't give you a frame but instead lets you choose 2 different Incarn weapons to grind for. And these weapons can be some of the best in the game, so you'll definitely be doing Steel Path circuit in the future if you want some sweet Incarn weapons. While doing the Duviri, you will also obtain some resources which can be used to buy certain items at a vendor found in your dormi zone called Arbitrations. This vendor sells Duviri related items and can also act as the Orexia vendor if you want to buy Orexia parts. Occasionally you will also see a Ribbon mod in her rotation, so it is worth checking back regularly to see what the shop actually offers. So to summarize Duviri, you will be running the Duviri experience on solo mode if you want to farm Duviri resources and do side objectives and hidden stuff where you can actually unlock some interesting things, and just chill around the Duviri. Then you have the lone story, which is a more streamlined version of completing the spiral to get to the Worm to get yourself the Path of Clams as quickly as possible. And lastly you have the circuit, which can be your weekly goal to complete to gain Warframes, mods and Incarn weapons once you get Steel Path unlocked. And Duviri does have quite a bit of grinding behind it, but it is possible to complete it by collecting everything it has to offer. And it will also be a great boost for new players to quickly gain some more Warframes and also some of the best weapons in the game to progress their account. We will be covering the Incarn weapons more in the next episode. And that should cover the basics for Duviri, but there's still quite a bit more to it and things to discover in Duviri, so if there's something you would like to share or something you found in Duviri, feel free to leave a comment down below. Also, this series is taking quite a lot of time and effort, so it would be greatly appreciated if you hit that like button, and if you want to see more, feel free to subscribe to be notified for the next video. With the Angels of Zariman quest completed, you will gain access to a new planet node called the Zariman, which is a big void ship to the left side of your star chart. And the Zariman also comes with a Zariman syndicate called the Holdfasts, who has some of the strongest weapons in the game for you, and also a place where you can craft them. A fun little thing to notice as well is that the higher the rank with the Holdfast is, the less void corrupted the NPCs will become, as the void you see on their faces will slowly fade away. But the Zariman consists of 5 different mission nodes and 1 dormi zone, which also have access to the Duviri and Arbitrations, the vendor for Duviri resources as mentioned in the last chapter. But to gain standing with the Zariman Holdfast, you will need something called Voidplumes, which can be turned in at our lovely girl Yonta, with each Voidplume giving a different amount of standing as seen here. So in Zariman, all missions can spawn a total of 8 Voidplumes scattered across the mission. 1 Voidplume is guaranteed to be the crest, 2 Voidplumes are guaranteed to be the veins, and the remaining Voidplumes will spawn as downs or veins. Also, the Void Angels you encountered in the quest will also guarantee a Voidplume pinion upon death. These Voidplumes are hidden around the mission, and you can get help finding them from lost spirits, which are ghostly children that can be activated activated by interacting with the spirit markers also scattered across the missions. And if you follow them, they will take you to the nearest Voidplume, Zariman Accolade or the Soma Cord fragments. You can also decide to do bounties in Zariman from Quinn, and you will then be able to get Voidplumes as bounty completion rewards. So it is recommended to do bounties and gather some Voidplumes throughout the mission to actually farm them fairly quickly. On top of this, you can also trade in resources found in Zariman such as Frax Plasm, Void Gel Orbs and Intradilatrums for Voidplumes at Yonta. But I do recommend saving the Intradilatrums as they are used for quite a bit of crafting in Warframe. So Voidplumes can of course be used for sanding with the Holdfasts syndicate, but they can also be traded in at Yonta for Kuva once a week and 2 Arbiter decorations. The Voidplumes are also used for crafting the Warframe Gyra, which is one of my favorite running nuke Warframes. It is also used for the base Incarn weapons such as the Fenimore, the Relics, the Latrum and the Peados and the Idiom. So if you begin reaching the MR rank for these weapons, I would try to have saved up the crafting cost so you can craft them as fast as possible, as they are insanely good weapons. You can get quite a few things from the Holdfast standing, and if you enjoy decorating your Arbiter, you have an array of items you actually can get from Humbask, who sells Dormy Zone items which can be used to decorate the Dormy Zone as well as your Arbiter. There's also a special key for 100k standing to open up the back room of the Dormy Zone, which is just a room with a big window and more space to decorate in. But the important use for Zariman Holdfast standing is at Cavaleo, who sells the base Incarn weapons, quite a few arcanes and also some cosmetic ephemera at rank 5, which can look pretty cool on your Warframe. I would try to get to at least rank 2 with them pretty quickly so you can get the Lathium and Fenimore blueprints, as they will cover your primary and secondary weapon slots pretty well. So to summarize, you will want to run the bounties in Zariman to obtain the Voidplumes, and while running these missions you will also try to gather the Voidplumes in the missions as well, which can then be used to rank up the Holdfast standing. Then try to get your mastery rank up, which is needed to equip the great Incarn weapon sold by Cavalero, as they will give you a huge boost in firepower early on your account. You can also farm 2 Warframes from Zariman, the first one being Gyra, which drops from the Zariman bounties and is one of my favorite Warframes, and the second is Verona, which can be obtained by trading in the Luathrax Plasm at Yonta, and that should cover the basics of Zariman. So now for something that was changed recently called Arbitrations, which was normally unlocked with Steel Path, but now you actually gain access to it as soon as you reach Ares Junction by equipping a focus lens as seen here. Arbitrations is a mission you can do once every hour, and it requires you to have a rank 30 frame or mastery rank 30 to enter the mission without a rank 30 frame. The mission can drop something called the Vitus Essence, which is used to buy some of the strongest mods in the game called the Galvanized Mods. Arbitration missions can be found up under the navigation menu, and these are a little bit different compared to your normal missions in Warframe, as once you actually die inside the arbitration mission, you will not enter the bleed out phase where you actually can revive yourself. Instead you will become a revived tower, and other players who can actually kill the arbitration shield drones will now begin to drop the resurgent tokens, and you will need 5 of these tokens to revive a dead player. Also, the different types of missions you will do in these work a little bit different than your normal variant, as for example the excavation mission, where you will have to do 2 instead of 1 for actually it to count. And also the rotation of arbitrations, as they actually follow a different pattern. This pattern is AA, BB, CC, and then it will just continue onwards in the C rotation for the rest of the mission from there on out. While playing these arbitration missions, a shield drone will spawn in every now and then, and these drones make enemies inside their range invincible, so you will have to kill the shield drone before you can actually do damage to any enemies inside these shields. The shield drones are also what you will basically be farming for Vitus Essence inside these missions. So as mentioned, Vitus Essence is the resource needed to buy the Galvanized Mods, which are some of the strongest mods in the game. But how do we then acquire this Vitus Essence? Well, there's 2 main ways to do so. One is the mission rotation reward, and the other is killing the shield drones inside these missions. So shield drones will spawn in, and each time you kill one you will have a 6% chance for it to drop a Vitus Essence. Also, necros or loot frames will not increase the yield since shield zones actually explode on death, but resource boosters will work here. Additionally, each rotation in the arbitrations will give you 1 Vitus Essence, and you will have a 7% chance for a rotation reward to drop the quantity of 3 Vitus Essence each rotation completed. And as you can see here with the AA, BB, CC and C onwards rotation rewards, these are the things you will be able to get in the rotations. And I highly recommend choosing a Rhino or a tanky frame in these missions so you don't go down or die easily. So now that we know how the mission works, let's go have a look at where we actually spend our Vitus Essence. First we will need to go to the Arbiters of Hexes, which can be found in any relay, or you could fast travel to them from the Syndicate station. When at their quarters, find the Honor Sky and talk to him and he will have the Vitus Essence shop, as he will sell you a different array of mods, arcanes, cosmetics and also the Galvanized Mods. Galvanized Mods are a little bit special of a mod, as it will actually give you a flat increase but also a stacking effect by killing enemies. So for example, the Galvanized Chamber for rifles will give you a flat 80% increase to multi-shot, and with each kill up to 5 it will stack 30% multi-shot on top, meaning you will max out at 230 multi-shot, which is a pretty good increase for a single mod. Now that we got an idea of how Arbitration works and where to spend the Vitus Essence, let's go through some of the things I would recommend getting first to help out with the early steps from this vendor. And for the normal mods, I would highly recommend getting a Rolling Guard mod if you're struggling with survivability and not using a tank frame. This mod allows you to roll, making you invulnerable for 3 seconds and removing any status effect you have on you. So if you are about to die or have a ticking status effect hurting you, you can just roll it off. And this mod is used in a lot of Steel Path endgame builds, so if you need a mod at some point to help you survivability, definitely get this. Now for the Galvanized Mods, which are the really important mods here, and it really depends on what your current main type of weapon is, because the Galvanized Mods works only on the specific weapon category like any other mods in the game, so you'll want the mods that will fit your weapon category first. So if you're mainly using shotguns, I would recommend getting the Galvanized Hell mod, which gives a base multi-shot increase and also flat percentage in multi-shot increase for each kill you get up to a certain point, and the same logic applies to the other weapons as well. But again, this really depends on your playstyle and your current mod setup, so I highly recommend double checking your current builds and seeing what you actually need for them. Overall, these Galvanized mods can make a weapon way more powerful. Stacking multiple different Galvanized mods on some builds will also make it work, making it a good idea to try and get all the Galvanized mods, but try to start out with the multi-shot ones, as they are fairly often used in different builds. Also keep in mind that these are fairly capacity expensive mods, so it's a good idea to equip them onto your polarity slots in your different weapons. Now for something some of you might already have encountered, a system that can be pretty overwhelming the first time you run into it, and that is called the Kuva Liches. So let's go over how Liches work and how you can get the Kuva weapons that you want to get, and also get the right elemental bonus on them, because you can actually choose what innate elemental bonus that the weapon comes with. Kuva Liches are a boss type enemy that you can spawn in your world by mercy killing a Kuva Larvling. Once you actually do this, the Larvling will transform into an adversary, a Kuva Lich, who will then start occupying your Earth node and stealing some of your end of mission rewards whenever you do a mission on that planet the Lich is currently occupying. But don't worry, once you actually defeat the Lich, you will get all of your stolen loot back. And Kuva Liches can be a bit tricky and hard to understand without some guidance, because there's several mechanics and some pre-farming involved if you want to defeat them and get the Kuva weapon they carry. And when you finally defeat the Kuva Lich, you will obtain the Kuva weapon they had equipped. Additionally, you can also obtain the Emissary Ephermia if the Lich actually was carrying one, and there's around a 20% chance for that to happen. And if you want to try to obtain a Kuva weapon for yourself, the first step is knowing how to spawn in a Kuva Lich. Some of you might already have done this without realizing it, and I know I did this myself the first time around. To spawn a Kuva Lich, you will need to have completed the War Within quest, be at least Master Rank 5, and have acquired your Railjack. These are the requirements to unlock the chance for a Kuva Larvling to actually spawn in. The Kuva Larvlings can spawn in Grineer missions that are above level 20, but not in Sorties, Void Fissures, Invasions, Quests or Dark Sector missions. And you will know a Larvling has spawned in when the lights in the mission begin to flicker yellow. After that, you will have 30 seconds to kill enemies, which will then force the Larvling to appear. Once it spawns, its location will be marked with a red waypoint on your HUD. And the mission I recommend farming repeatedly until you get the Kuva weapon you want is Cassini on Saturn. Just run through, kill enemies, extract and repeat until you get the weapon you are after. When you defeat the Kuva Larvling, you will have the choice to mercy kill it, and mercy killing this Larvling will then spawn the Kuva Lich with the weapon shown above the Kuva Larvling's head. So if it's a Kuva weapon that you actually want to get, go ahead and mercy kill it, otherwise just leave it alone and extract or leave the mission. This will then make the weapon be removed from the Larvling's weapon rotation, meaning it won't reappear again on future Larvlings. This way you can then keep farming Larvlings until you actually get the Kuva weapon you are aiming for. And here's the full list of the Kuva weapons you can go for. Also, I do recommend getting the Kuva Heck, because we are using the Heck as our main weapon basically. So remember to check the weapon before you mercy kill the Larvling, and make sure you're using the right Warframe to actually get the right elemental bonus you want to get on the weapon. So as Kuva weapons comes with an innate elemental effect such as toxin, cold, heat and so on, up to 60%, you might want to make sure that the weapon comes with the correct status effect, to basically not break your build or make a weird combo. So the Warframe you actually use to mercy kill the Larvling will also determine the innate status effect that the Kuva weapon will have, as seen from the list right here. That means is if you're using Excalibur to finish off the Larveling, you will get a weapon with electricity, and if you were to use Necros, you would get a weapon with Toxin. So be sure to use the right frame when getting your Kuva weapon. The weapon will also roll the amount of elemental effect from 25 to 60%, so you want to try for a high percentage weapon, otherwise you will be able to throw the same type of Kuva weapon into the Kuva weapon to upgrade the percentage. Also later in the game it is possible to change the elemental effect on a weapon, but that is far outside our current reach for now. Now that we know how to start the Kuva Lich and get the correct weapon with the right elemental effect on it, we are ready to begin our Kuva hunt, but first we need to get some things to actually hunt the Kuva Lich. The first thing we need is something called a Requiem Mod, because to kill a Kuva Lich we will have to guess the correct order of 3 Requiem Mods to take it down without making it stronger and sending it to a different planet. We will cover all this in a bit, but first we need to go over how we acquire the Requiem Mods needed to defeat the Lich. So as we have covered in an earlier episode, we can farm Kuva missions to get Requiem Relics, but let's do a quick recap. In the navigation menu under alerts you can find the Kuva Siphon missions, and completing these missions will give you a 50-50 chance to receive a Requiem Relic. I would recommend doing a Kuva Siphon mission solo to skip the objective and have a fast clear time. Of course you can also do them normally with a squad to gain Kuva, then just run the Kuva missions until you have a little selection of Requiem Relics we can open up. We can then go into the Fisher tab where we'll normally do the relic farming for prime parts, and if you scroll down you should be able to find a Kuva version seen by the Grenier logo being Kuva themed. Also having Kuva in the name, and you want to run these Fisher missions in an open party with your Requiem Relics for a chance to obtain the Requiem Mods that we actually need. There are 8 different mods, and I would highly recommend trying to get at least one of each before starting your Kuva Lich, as you might end up needing the one you don't have. And a little bonus, these mods can actually be sold and bought on Warframe.market, so if you have a lot of spare ones or need one you could check out the market, as they usually go for around 10 plat. Now we just need to go get a Lich on Casinini, and I will be going for a Toxin Heck, as that works pretty well just overall for a lot of content in the game, while Heat works pretty good too, and if you want the Heck for mostly to one-shot Archons later on, Radiation is probably the way to go. With our newly acquired Lich we will now have a red icon on our navigation menu showing our Kuva Lich occupying Earth, and we will have to do Kuva Lich variants of missions where enemies called the Thralls or Murmurs can spawn in, and killing these enemies will then unlock knowledge about our Kuva Lich. And which Requiem Mods we need to actually be able to defeat our Kuva Lich, meaning we will have to keep doing these missions until we at least know one of the mods. Guessing randomly and getting it wrong will just be a waste of a guess. That's why if the Lich actually shows up and you don't have the right Requiem Mods or still have a few nodes to complete on the Kuva Lich planet, I will just skip out on the Lich for now and don't waste a guess by mercy killing it yet. Once you actually know 1 or 2 of the Requiem Mods, you can then begin trying to get the first 2 mods right. That means if you go inside the Kuva Lich on your navigation menu, you will need to equip the Requiem Mods that the Kuva Lich matches, the ones that actually shows up on the right side of the Kuva Lich, into your Paragon, and you will then have to mercy the Lich 3 times, 1 for each slot, and you will need the mods in the correct order. So if the Kuva Lich shows up and you know 2 of the current mods, then you will just have to equip them in the first and second slot, and you will have to try and mercy kill the Lich. It will then either show up as red for failed or whitish for a correct guess. If you fail the first mod slot, then you know which mod shouldn't be in the first slot going forward, and you can try the other mods that show up in the Kuva Lich in the first slot instead. While if it's correct, you now know which mod should be in the first slot going forward, and you will get a chance to see if the second is correct, and if that's correct as well, then the third, and so on. While if the second one fails, you now know that the third Requiem mod will be the one that have to be in the second location. So this system is mostly trial and error. You do the occupied planet missions to get to know the right Requiem mods, and then when the Lich actually spawns in, you can then try the Lich to get the correct combo. But do keep in mind that every time you fail, the Lich will move on to the next planet, and it will become stronger and harder to finish off in the final boss fight for this at the end. So if you get really unlucky, you will have a harder time killing the final Lich at the end. But now just keep doing this until you actually finish off the Lich with 3 right Requiem mods in the correct order. This will make the Kuva Lich flee to a Railjack mission where you will have to finish it off. Now that the Kuva Lich is making its final stand in a Railjack mission, it is time to go hunt it down. I recommend doing this mission in a public squad if you are having trouble, but if you're confident that you can do it, going in solo can actually be quite a bit faster, as you only have to kill your own Kuva Lich and not everyone else's. Keep in mind that the further the Kuva Lich has moved, the stronger it has become. Some combinations of Kuva Liches can be really annoying to kill, so I recommend going in with a tanky frame and a hard-hitting weapon. When you then kill the Kuva Lich, you get 2 options. You can either convert or vanquish Vanquish the Lich. Converting the Lich lets you trade it or have it as a crewmate on your Railjack, but you will lose out on the Kuva weapon they carry, so I only recommend converting if you actually have a specific reason for doing so. Most of the time you want to vanquish the Lich to get the Kuva weapon you have been farming for, and once you vanquish it, you will be able to extract from the mission. The Kuva weapon will then be delivered to your foundry, where you can claim it whenever you're ready, or just leave it if you don't have a free weapon slot at the moment. And of course you can probably find min-max ways to streamline your progress and sweat through the Kuva Liches as efficiently as possible, but there's no need to stress about that right now, since you are still learning the system. Just have fun and try to hunt your first Lich. Hopefully you will get the weapon you want with a high elemental percentage on your first try though. With that we have covered the basics, and you should now know how to complete your first Kuva Lich. If you want more advanced tips and tricks, there's plenty of videos out there that fully min-max the Kuva Lich farming, and if you have any hints or tips or questions, feel free to leave a comment down below or join the Discord to share with the community. And now in one of the latest updates, the way to actually unlock Steel Path has changed, and you can now unlock it much earlier than before. To unlock Steel Path now, you only need to complete all the nodes on the base planets prior to the new war quest. That means all of the original planets you have access to before starting the new war. And this excludes what you have unlocked after new war, like Zariman, the labs and so far, if you have gotten to that. And you know you have completed a planet's node when you actually see a little mastery icon next to the planet, like right here. And to gain access to Steel Path, you need to get this mastery icon on most of the planets. Note that Deimos and Ares might have an extra node that doesn't count towards Steel Path, but still contributes to the planet's mastery. So now we can start slowly working towards Steel Path. However, we are not quite ready to take it on just yet, as our firepower and survivability still needs some improvements, but don't worry, we will cover that in the next episode. Now that we are making solid progress in the game and story and unlocking new content, in the next episode we will be wrapping up most of the main story and basically be reaching the main phase where you will have access to most things. This will require some more questing, so we will have to dive into that as well in today's homework. Our plan will be to do Jade Shadows to learn more about the lore, and this quest ties into some of the events in Whispers in the Wall, which will be the next quest in the line. And Whispers in the Wall unlocks quite a few new features that we'll cover in the next episode, and after that you can then continue with the Hex quest, which also unlocks even more content. And at this point you are basically done with the main story. There's still some things here and there, but you are basically at the point of the main game. So we will be unlocking a bunch of new things behind these quests, and while we'll go over most of the important stuff next time, feel free to check out all of the unlocks on your own as you get them. Also, there is a lot of cool content waiting, so highly look forward to it. And since we are using our Hex as our main weapon on this account, I will be farming a Galvanized Hell mod, and if you use a different weapon as your main, I highly recommend farming its corresponding Galvanized multi-shot mod. Other systems we will cover in the next episode include Archon hunts and Archon mods, which require completing the Veil Breaker quest. And we'll unlock a new feature for your newly acquired Drifter camp, which can be pretty cool at the beginning. And we also have a goal to reach at least rank 3 with the Entradi Syndicates, and also gather some standing to spend on the new Hellemyth system, which we will explain in the next episode. Finally, we will need to finish up the remaining nodes prior to the new war quest, so we can take a quick look at Steel Path and start preparing for it in the next episode. And that's it for episode 9 of the Beginner Guide series. I hope you have found it useful, and if you haven't watched the first few episodes yet, I highly recommend checking them out, as there's quite a few tips and tricks that could still be helpful even if you're already past this stage in the game. And if you just need a refresher for systems, you can always go back and check them out. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below, and if you want more Warframe tips, don't forget to like and subscribe for future content, and check out my other videos for more guides and tips. We also have a Discord server, so feel free to hop in there and become part of the community. Stay tuned, stay tipsy, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace out.